Joining me right now is Congressman Devin Nunes. He's the ranking member of the House Intel Committee, and he also serves on the House Ways and Means Committee as well, and he was first to come out and tell the truth on all of this. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
It's great to be with you. Thanks, Maria.
So I want to get your reaction to General Flynn, but first let's talk about these 53 transcripts that were released this week. What did we learn?
Well, we said for a long time that we had no evidence of collusion. One of the goals that we had going into this, and you're going to have Trey Gowdy on later in the show, and we had a strategy here that we wanted to get every single person that we interviewed, whether or not they knew of any evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Furthermore, what you will see, Maria, is that we even asked questions about hearsay. Did they hear anything? Do they know anything? Do they have any lead for us whatsoever? And the answer was always the same. Nothing. But what you had day after day is you had coordination with the Democrats and the mainstream media, who are essentially their mouthpieces. They would go out, run out of these hearings and say, oh my gosh, we just had bombshells today. It was really bad. We interviewed this Trump associate, that Trump associate. However, the opposite was true. And I think the really enlightening thing that you'll see through this is not just that. I think most Americans that watch your show that are up to speed on this, who have known this was a hoax all along, they get that there's not going to be anything new in these transcripts other than they'll likely be, you'll begin to see where some of our criminal referrals are based out of, is some of the false testimony that was given to Congress. But what you will also see is you will see the deep, dark fantasies of the Democrats in the House. Where are those sick fantasies? Where do they originate from? You'll see that they ask people about the P-tape of things, of all things. And I know it's Mother's Day and I don't want to talk like this, but this was the Russian dirt, okay, that came from Fusion GPS and the Clinton campaign. They had these fantasies, whether they, we know now that they didn't even get them from Russians. They claimed they were getting them from Russians. And here at the same time, you've got the Democrats in the House of Representatives accusing the Trump campaign of coordinating with Russia, when the reality is that they were the ones who were paying for dirt that they thought came from Russians, and then asking about sick things like P-tapes and prostitutes to every one of these witnesses that came in. I think that's the real revelation for the American people, is they were using their own Russian dirt to ask questions, and it was all fake. It was all phony the whole time, and the press was in on this too. It's the cover-up. And I think that's the main thing, is now you're starting to see the pieces of the cover-up that I think are actually more important. And that's why that's why what happened this week with General Flynn being exonerated, it's the first part of the cover-up of the Democrats covering up for using this sick dirt that they paid for.
So you wonder if this is going to be the first domino to fall. I mean, these House Intel Committee Russia transcripts confirm all that you've just said. You've got James Clapper. Here's a quote. I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians to meddle in the elections. This is behind closed doors. We're just getting this evidence now, last week. Susan Rice, I don't recall intelligence that I would consider evidence to that effect that I saw, a conspiracy prior to my departure. Andrew McCabe, when asked about the most damning piece of evidence, quote, we have not been able to prove the accuracy of all the information. You don't know if it's true or not. That's correct. I don't know if it's true. All of these testimonies behind closed doors with Congressman Ratcliffe, Congressman Trey Gowdy, yourself, and all the while these transcripts were happening and these meetings were taking place, they would leave the closed door session, go on TV, and say something completely different. How many times did we hear former CIA Director John Brennan, go on MSNBC and say President Trump committed treason? Where is the accountability for all of this, Congressman?
Well, look, what you see is behind closed doors, they weren't as tough as what they were out on the cable news networks where they're getting paid to pontificate. In fact, they were quite weak. And they were quite pathetic. And they were, they really cowered down because, that was their opportunity to get on the record. What evidence did they have? And you see when they're on the chopping block and they can be busted for lying or misleading Congress, they got very, very weak. However, you do see some discrepancies. There's a lot of discrepancies in this testimony, not with just what they were saying out on out to the American public, but also what they said on the record in different places. And so, we now know that the dossier was leaked. You now see we had this in our report, by the way, right? The House Republican report that's still the gold standard report. We had in there that General Flynn didn't lie. We had in there that the DNI was responsible for leaking the dossier to BuzzFeed, for confirming its existence to BuzzFeed. And at that point, that was supposedly a classified document that would have been leaked and then confirmed that the U.S. government had it. So there's a lot that needs to be looked at here that unfortunately, our report back in May of 2018 when it was released is really, not only is it the gold standard report, it's the only report that still upholds to any value at all, because the others are either under investigation or should be under investigation.
That's correct. It is the gold standard. Absolutely. Let me ask you about this, because there's news that we still need to break here, and that is the so-called Flynn 302. Now, the 302s is a reference meaning that this is notes that FBI agents took after they met with Flynn. Explain what you think is in the 302 of Flynn, and why have we not seen the exchanges, the notes that the FBI agents took after their meeting in January 2017 when they ambushed General Flynn? Where's the Flynn 302, Congressman?
Well, the 302 is still missing, Maria. So here's what we know. This report, when it was taken down, after that report was transcribed, we had people at the highest level, the FBI, come and brief us. Plus, we have other sources that also gave us the same information, that the FBI agents essentially said, look, there's nothing to see here. Flynn wasn't lying. And that's what we were told on the record. So we knew this at the beginning of 2017. So you can imagine my astonishment when it began to leak out in the press that General Flynn was being busted for lying to the FBI, and that's what the Mueller team, the dirty Mueller team, that's what they were going to bust him on. And I told people at the highest levels of the FBI and the DOJ, I said, what are you doing here? Like, we have on the record from the highest level people that he didn't lie to the FBI. So, I don't care if that's what you're using, if you're going to drop the charges on Flynn's son or whatever conspiracy theory they were peddling against General Flynn, they had no possible way to bust him or indict him for lying to the FBI, because then that means that the FBI had lied to us. Okay, now, so what happened? What happened is that report was doctored, Maria. And that report, we know it was doctored because the Lovebirds, we have the text messages of them doctoring the report. But here's the problem. That's right. The original report that was used to brief the United States Congress, that report is missing. It's gone. Poof. It's out. We can't find it. Unbelievable. And I would think that's something that we should have, and that's something that General Flynn should have.
So real quick, because this was a very several-pronged strategy. There was the wiretapping. That was part one of the strategy. There were the informants who ran into campaign people like George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page. There was the leaking and the lying. Let me just ask you very quickly, we got to jump here. Is leaking classified information a felony? Is lying to Congress a felony? Tell me the answer to those things, because those two things we know took place.
Well, look, and that's part of what you're now seeing, the referrals that we made. Now, look, I think the bigger issue is the conspiracy. Who was doing the spying? Okay, let's just call that spying. Who orchestrated all of this well before July 30th of 2016? That's a key date to remember. Who continued the spying? Right. Who decided it was okay to run all these people into George Papadopoulos and others? These are all questions that we have outstanding for John Durham. The good news is, I think, for this week is that the fruits of our investigation that the media covered up and is still covering up to this day, they're not getting past the long arm of the law. And that's what happened this week with the appointment of the prosecutor out of Missouri to come in, take a fresh look at this. And lo and behold, what did they find? The same thing we found. It's impossible to indict General Flynn for lying to Congress, or you yourself have been the ones that are lying to Congress, meaning the FBI agents and people that testified to Congress.
All right. We will leave it there. We're going to talk with Trey Gowdy coming up, and he is ready to name names of the media that actually encouraged this and drove the bus on all of this. Congressman Nunes, good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir. We will see you soon.